Hey everyone, welcome to another page in the Desert Plant Diary. I'm Carl. In today's video, I'm going to let you join me as I repot this beautiful euphorbia. Now this is a Euphorbia Clindrifolia, perhaps named because of the cylindrical leaves that it has. An interesting thing about this plant is it forms a caudex. So I've had this plant for about a year and a half now. Quite a lucky purchase because the caudexes form on these plants only if they are seed grown. Oftentimes you will find these propagated from stem cuttings in plant nurseries, so they're not quite known or not quite popular for their caudexes by people who don't know a lot about it. When I decided to repot this, it was quite an accidental discovery. Now this plant originates in Madagascar and grows in a very limited area in that place too. And it's got a cyanthiae that could be 2 on a stem or perhaps 1. Now a cyanthiae is a euphorbia's flower, and they're also called naked flowers as well because they don't have petals or sepals. Now what I am going to do is to repot it in this ceramic pot, though it's always advisable to have these repotted in terracotta pots because these dry faster, because the pot tends to encourage evaporation because it's made out of clay. Alternatively, what you can do is to perhaps use some amount of pebble, like so, or pumice, or even clay in fact. Now these plants, the ceramic pots that we get normally come with good drainage holes, and what I have done is taken this tea bag and I've made a tear already in it to encourage drainage again. So I'm going to cover that with soil. I'm going to fill at least half of this container with soil again. Quite a lot of aquarium gravel that I've used to encourage draining again. Now, as is the case with most of the caudiciform plants, you want to be careful with watering it because the caudexes are very prone to root rot. So what I am going to do is to sit this guy way above the base of the pot. That way, ensure that it doesn't have wet feet. You could water this plant about once in 10 days perhaps. Now that I've repotted it, I will ensure that I wait for about a week before I water it. And the reason why I have elevated this plant, one is to ensure that it doesn't have wet feet. Another reason is to very gradually expose the caudex, because if you expose the caudex very suddenly to direct sunlight, it will cause for the caudex to get burnt. So I am going to top up the pot with soil. And as I water it, what's going to happen is it very gradually will, the soil will sink, and that will gradually cause for the caudex to be exposed to sunlight. But the good thing about this plant, as you can see, is it does form a type of canopy on top. So that protects the bottom or the caudex, whatever might be exposed. Now typically in its natural habitat, this plant grows in the Aleuodia procera or the Aleuodia, I'm not sure if it's the procera or other types of Aleuodia forest. So it is kind of sheltered, but I have grown this in direct sunlight and it seems to be doing pretty well. So that the plant is centered. I'm going to lift the plant up just a little bit more so it makes it easy to expose the caudex again. Now, if you are a person who likes bonsais, but you're not really interested in trimming the roots for whatever be the reason, this is a good alternative. So most of the caudiciform euphorbias tend to have that bonsai look to them. So this is a good option. So perhaps in 6 to 8 months, this plant will have a good caudex form, and if you would like the caudex to be larger, you might want to ensure that the entire root system is submerged or beneath the soil, because that will encourage it to expand. Nonetheless, this will at its best grow up to be, or the caudex will perhaps at its best be the size of your fist. And of all of the caudiciform euphorbias that are found in the region of Madagascar, this is perhaps the most caudiciform plant you will find there. So I'm going to top that with some aquarium gravel. You could use any type of top dressing, but the reason why I have used this is I normally tend to use gravel for cacti and white colored top dressing for the other soft succulents. And by soft succulents I am referring to the echeverias and the sedums and the graptos and all of the crosses between them. Let me just lift the skirt of this plant to check if I have topped it with gravel all the way up to the root system, which is the case. Ensure that it's centered. Now you will see all of these fine roots. Now typically when someone does get this plant ready for any cacti or succulent exhibition, they will trim off all of the fine fibrous roots you see over here. But I'm not going to do that because it can encourage some amount of root rot again. And besides which, I don't want to torture the plant by doing that. So I'm sure with time and with exposure to the elements, they will gradually find their own way of forming a better root system below the soil surface, and these will eventually dry up. So that's pretty much it. It's potted and ready to be placed in the garden. So what I will do is, as mentioned earlier, water this perhaps after 1 week. So if there are any roots that have gotten damaged, or perhaps the leaves or the stem happens to be damaged, it will callus over during that period, and I will water it after that. And it's good to fertilize this plant during its active growing season. Now in general, I fertilize all of my cacti and succulents about once in 6 months. Though people say you could use 1/4 of the strength, perhaps every 15 days, and there are people who even fertilize them, plant nurseries, or once in 8 days as well. But I am not going to do that, and we will talk about fertilization in a different video. So let me place this with the other plants and have you guys look at that as well. And before I do that, I've forgotten to do this for a very long time. I'd like to thank my friend Joyce for giving me this beautiful tripod, because that's enabled me to have my hands free to explain stuff and deal with the plants in a better manner. So thank you, Joyce, if you're watching. So here we are. I've placed the plant amongst all of the other plants, and it does look pretty stunning, if I might say so myself. And you can see that a part of the caudex is exposed. And it's quite a beautiful caudex as well. Not very large, quite a tiny one, but beautiful nonetheless. So thank you guys for watching, wishing you a lot of inspiration and strength to step out in your garden today, get your plant mojo on and do something fantastic. Thank you guys for watching. You have a fantastic day. Cheers.